Yeah, yeah, yeah. Baby, yeah. You know, say ready for this. You know I have patience.
Peace, family. Welcome to another episode of the Grand Rising Collective podcast. We are here again for you and your pleasure. So welcome. For those who are not familiar with our platform, my name is Kyle Dixon, one of the hosts, co-hosts, and my other co-host, Katie Bentley, who are here to provide a platform for people who are at their best, people who are in the community doing great things, and we want to be able to share that with you all. So if you're not familiar with our podcast before, again, my name is Kyle, educator, entrepreneur, educated for 20 plus years, entrepreneur for 15 plus years. Precise Minds Filmworks is the company that I co-own with Corey Smallwood. And I'm also an educator, educated from the grammar school level all the way up to entry-level college as well. And this platform that we have, you all, is really to be a platform that gives opportunity to people in the community globally to be able to express some of their experiences, some of their skill sets, and some of their solutions toward obstacles and issues we have in our society. So we chose the term Grand Rising Collective because Grand Rising is a term of endearment, kind of like good morning. So instead of saying good morning, you say Grand Rising. And in reference to that, Grand Rising is a reminder for us to always be at our best, be excellent, start the day excellent, and continue with excellence throughout their lifestyle. All right. So without further ado, I'd like to pass it to my co-host, Katie Bentley. My man, take it away.
Thank you very much, Kyle. I appreciate you, man. Always. The introductions be knocking me out the box. So anyway, I think it's very important that, I introduce myself so that way you know who's speaking to you as well as who you're listening to. My name is Kaide Bentley. I'm the president and founder of an organization called Forward Teach Continues to Think, whose mission is to help inner city youth identify their inherent skill set so that way they can use their skill set to complete their education, establish a career, and ultimately start a business if they choose to. I also wear the hat of adjunct professor at Fordham University, and I'm also sit on the advisory board at LIU. Now, my reasons for joining the Grand Rising Collective, as Cal eloquently stated already, there's no reason for me to give any further elaboration. You already did a great job. But what I bring to the table is the fact that my organization targets inner city youth between the ages of 16 and 24. Grand Rising Collective giving me the platform to reach a larger audience, particularly an audience in the neighborhood that we live in that consists of parents, that consists of adults, that consists of organizational leaders of that nature. So instead of having these conversations in the bubble, I can then share my knowledge, cascade that information to the neighborhood or community, quote unquote, that's misnamed at large to better uplift the community and neighborhood. So that's basically my introduction right there. If you have any other questions, please don't hesitate to let me know. And without any further ado, now, over the past conversations, Kyle has been bringing the heavy hitters, right? So I've been sitting here like, yo, I don't know what's going on, but I got somebody for you now. This woman is no joke. Oh, by the way, and I'm going to make sure I introduce her right, Kyle. Make sure I do it right. So without any further ado, I want to introduce you to Doctor.
He ain't a doctor yet.
Don't get confused by the title because she is seriously real. She keeps it 100. So without any further delay, Rochelle, please introduce yourself, what you do, so we can to this conversation and learn more from the knowledge that you're going to share with us.
Hey, the kid needed her fruit snacks. I'm sorry. Okay. So I am Rochelle Lindsey, but I go by Shelly. And I have been working in education for probably about 25 years, maybe. I'm kind of dating myself a little bit. So I've worked in education, in elementary, middle, high school, higher education. I've worked in nonprofits where I've done reentry, I've done GED programs, I've done mentoring programs, I've done extended learning programs. I worked in Boston, I worked in New York. So with all of that, I have different outlooks on education and how we support our urban youth, if you will. And most recently, I've landed probably the position of my dreams. I work at Morehouse School of Medicine as the Director of Alumni in the Office of Institutional Advancement. So it is the combination of all things that I love, education and health and medicine, even though you can't tell by my arm, I'm a health nut. But that is who I am, and that's what I do now. I raise money so we can put doctors and researchers and advocacy people in place.
Told you.
Hey man, I trust you. I mean, the listeners and fans should trust you too. So I mean, we don't bring no slouches on here on this platform.
Okay.
Right.
We'll see if I don't disappoint. I might, but we'll see.
Nah, I doubt that, sister. I doubt that. But you working at Morehouse, coming from that CAU, what you about to get into? You know?
Oh, look at you! You know a little something about me. Okay.
Yeah. I do my research.
Look, I'm already impressed because I didn't even mention anything about Clark Atlanta University. But okay.
Do a little something every now and then.
I gotta watch you, Kyle. Now, okay. Yes, I am a CAU grad. Panther Pride.
Okay. HBCU, Fiskite, holla.
Okay. All right, I see. Me and you all day.
Yes, sister, we are there. Yes,
we are there. Yes,
we represent. So I want to go into that first question, right? Coming out of CAU, alumni. What the you got Ralph Abernathy, you got Marva Collins, you got the sister who did the portrait with Michelle Obama, Amy.
Oh yeah.
Her, but just coming out of that rich heritage and culture, like first of all, what led you there and experience like being at a HBCU, and especially in Atlanta?
Cool. That's a tough question. All right. So I'm going to tell you how it was. I actually started at school in New Orleans. I'm from New Orleans. So I started at Xavier University.
Great city. Beautiful city.
Thank you. I know it's beautiful. Everybody should go there. Go know.
Yes. Family, go to. That's another story.
Yes. So born and raised in New Orleans, and my trajectory was I got accepted into Hampton University, and that was my school of choice. And I got accepted into early admissions, and my mom got sick, and so she asked me to stay home. And so I ended up at Xavier University with all of my best friends from high school. Was there, had a really great time, but I was dating somebody who was very well known, and the popularity aspect of it was a lot. And when I mean by popularity aspect, he was popular. So I would have multitude of females come to me and tell me he's cheating on me, he's doing all these different things. So it became a lot. And then me and my mom at the time just didn't have the greatest relationship, and she would just pop up on me. And so one day I was at an Omega Psi Phi convention. I'm gonna put it all out there. And I met a guy who lived out here in Atlanta, and he was an older gentleman, and he was like, "What are you doing down here?" And I was like, "I'm living my best life. I'm at Xavier, and I'm a psychology major." And ironically, he said, "I really think that you should go into communications. I think that you should look into radio, television, and film. And the best school for that would be Clark Atlanta University. I have some connections there. I think you should come out. I think you should visit. I think that you would do very well in that industry, not psychology." And so maybe a month later, he called and he was like, "Hey, you're interested?" I set it up. He flew me out. I got to meet some influential people, got to see the program. I will say, when I first got here, walking on Morehouse College campus, look at black men. I was like, oh, this is it. That was one. And coming from Xavier University, we had single-sex dorms, and at Clark they had co-ed dorms. So I was like, oh, and we don't have a curfew. I stayed my freshman year, and I tell everybody, I enjoyed my freshman year. I partied every day but Wednesday. Even though I still worked, I worked 3 jobs.
Why not Wednesday?
Wednesday was hump day. It was a chill day. I had to sleep because Thursday started the weekend all over again.
Right, it does.
It does. You gotta think about it. You got Thursday night, Friday, Saturdays to jump off, Sundays brunch. Yeah. So Wednesday was my day to sleep, and ironically, it was the day that my roommate would catch up on The Young and the Restless. So she would watch that, and so nobody could come into our room because everybody would always come into our room. And so Wednesday was the day everybody knew I didn't have any classes on Wednesday. So Wednesday was the day she would catch up on The Young and the Restless, and I would sleep all day. And so I came out here, and I was just like, okay, I think this is where I need to be. And I think what ended up I can't remember exactly what happened, but literally the short story of it was I decided at last minute I was going to go to Clark. So I packed my bag. I had one bag. This is a short story. On another day, I'll tell you the full story, but I packed the bag, one bag. That was when AirTran was $50. The guy that I was dating, he had graduated from Tulane with, guys, somebody gonna see this and they're gonna know exactly who he is, but it's all good. Yeah, now I think about it, I was like, oh God. But anyway, I gave him a gift. It was a blue shirt with a white collar. So I had all of like $200 in my account. I bought the shirt, I bought it to him. I was like, I'm leaving. He gave me a hug. I thought he was gonna say stay, but he didn't say stay. He was like, best of luck to you. I'm gonna miss you. And my best friend brought me to the airport. That was when you could walk people to the gate. And I turned around and I was like, I can't do this. And she was like, you better get on that plane. And I was like, okay. And I got on the plane. Mind you, I didn't have a place to stay. I was not accepted into Clark Atlanta University. So when I got off the airplane, I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna do because I didn't have a place to stay. And so, you know, long story short, after a couple of months, again, I'll tell you about that later. I ended up getting everything situated with Clark, and the guy who I had met, friends, was over housing, so I was able to get housing for free for that year, and ended up at Clark as a communications major, hoping that I was going to be in radio or television.
Wow.
Short story, but it's real deep. It's an interesting story. My journey.
No, I bet. No, that's the skinny, but I know there's definitely more details to it. I mean, those connections come in handy. Those connections come in handy. But no, you did the HBCU circuit. You got almost Hampton, Xavier, which is top school, medical school. Then you go to Clark.
Yeah.
Okay. No, that's
yes. I didn't go to Spelman because I had a sister and she went to Spelman. And I didn't, my sister is from another mother. And at the time, I wanted to keep the peace. And I was like, well, she went to Spelman, I'm not going to Spelman, so I'm going to go to Clark. So people always, you know, there's a Spelman Clark thing sometimes. And I always tell people if I wanted to go to Spelman, I could have, but I chose not to. But that doesn't take anything away from Spelman because I have a 7-year-old who walks around here and says, I'm going to Spelman College. And I have to look at people and say, I went to Clark.
That's what I'm talking about. The legacy continues.
Oh yeah, most definitely. I will definitely say in my household, the one thing that her father and I have in common is that prayerfully HBCUs will still be around, and I want her to have the HBCU experience. I truly believe in the education that HBCU provide. I'm not biased to any of them because I have a PWI for both my master's degree, right? So I'm not biased to other schools. But for undergraduate, for what HBCU provides in terms of that level of confidence, the level of understanding, you know, how to maneuver and how to network. My humble opinion about undergraduate education is that it's a money pit, right? You really don't really learn the skills that you need to be successful in whatever career, because most people graduate, and I can't remember statistics, so I'm gonna just make up something, but it's like 60% of people who graduate with a degree is not really using their actual degree, right? But what I have learned from my HBCU experience is patience. I've learned the Clark Atlanta motto is find a way and make a way. And in my career, even with the position that I have now, if you was to see my resume, by no way of the definition should I be the director of alumni or working in fundraising. I have none of that true experience, but I was able to sell myself and sell my skill sets that I was able to accomplish my other jobs for them to give me a chance. And that's what I learned from HBCU. From attending Clark Atlanta University, is that people gonna always tell you no. Even if you have the skills, they're gonna tell you no, they're gonna find a reason. But HBCU it trains you up for, if this is something that you really want, then you're gonna figure out a way to get it, regardless of what HBCU you go to. I think that's the root of it. And as Black people, particularly in this climate right now, we always have to figure out our way. We always have to figure out our, you know, our definition of making success happen for us, because we are always faced with adversity. And unfortunately at HBCUs, you have those professors who's like, I got my degree, now you're gonna get yours, and I'm not gonna give you a handout. But they do it in a space, in a place of love, to make you work and really be prideful of what you're able to accomplish. So when you see people with an HBCU degree, it was by no way easy. Those loans are crazy. Most of us have to work our way through school because we don't get full rides, because HBCUs are not able to give everybody full rides. So when you talk about like work-life balance, and a student that's graduated from HBCU, by no other you can compare, because we understand, you know, work-life balance. We understand, you know, work, you know, late nights. We understand that we have to figure out a solution to problems that we are faced with every single day. And that just comes with trying to get a degree from HBCU. So I say all that to say is that this child is going to go to HBCU. Now, if she decides she wants to go to Spelman, but by all means, I'm okay with it. She wants to go to Howard, I'm okay with it. FAMU, I'm okay with it. Maybe not some other ones. We'll see by the end of this. No, but either way, I don't really care, because I feel like whatever degree you get, you're going to get the opportunity that is meant for you. You work for it. So I just want her to be able to have that experience.
Oof, man. Yo, she summed it up, man. Man, there's nothing like that. And for family, for those who don't know what we're talking about, HBCUs is historically Black colleges and universities, right? So, you know, everything that Shelly just said is same on my end. Like, it teaches you resilience. It teaches you how to really dig deep and really go for what you want. It teaches you how to manage the time and to be able to do certain things. Oh man, it's all that and then some.
Yeah.
You got it. I mean, and I'll give you one, Shelly. My mother was like, you going to HBCU. She gave me no choice. She was like, nah, you going to HBCU. Like,
you going. And it's so funny, because I'm so happy to see so many people now rallying behind our student athletes, looking and going to HBCU. If I could do something, and Kay, this, you know, he always know I'm trying to brainstorm and create something. I would love to create a foundation that raises money to support Black student athletes to go to HBCU on a full ride. I understand the struggle that many HBCU faces when it comes to recruitment. And I understand the need for us to start, you know, really promoting our Black athletes to go into HBCUs to help with the funding, to help with corporate sponsorships and stuff. So if there is anything that I could do, I would love to be able to develop a foundation to raise money just for that cause. I have a girlfriend who has a foundation. She's gonna kill me because I can't think of the name of it right now. But it will. I'll look it up low key when you're talking. But she's Sporty Esquire on Instagram, and her whole platform is around women in sports. And when I say she is a trailblazer in this area, and it's not just about the women in sports, it's about the professionalism and skill sets that these women have to bring to the table, and the motivation that they bring. I love going to her. I'm not a sports person, but I love going to her events because I learn not just about sports, but I also learn about the women and the business side of sports and how the women are maneuvering it. And one of the things that she recently was talking about was Black female athletes going to HBCUs and how to be able to support that bill, because it's difficult.
It is. Woo. And let me, I gotta ask this too, because thank you for that, because that ties into a lot of different things as far as like what the athletes switching from the PWIs, which is predominantly white institutions, or as some people say, not PWIs, but historically white institutions, HWIs.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a sideways question, but it is also in tangent of being at a school like that. Social organizations. You talk about organizations. And then, we talk about business, and we talk about, you have the other degrees. You have a master's in public administration. You have your licensed master's in social work. Are there any organizations that you're a part of, social, fraternal,
Which one do you think?
Okay, let's see. I'm looking at the colors.
Don't look at the colors. This happened to be the shirt I threw on.
Okay. All right, so from what I'm guessing, family, don't. Okay.
I'm not.
I'm thinking Sigma Gamma Rho.
That's interesting. Okay. That's very interesting. You will probably be the first person to ever tell me that one.
Really?
You'll be the first. You'll be the first person to tell me that.
Okay. So that means I'm off.
You complete off.
Okay. So can I get one more guess? Can I get one more?
Sure.
Delta.
Yes.
Okay. See. Okay. All right.
He was all the way Sigma Gamma Rho.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm a member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Now, why do we just say Sigma? Now, let me put this preference out there.
Yes.
And it's funny that you said that, because I had a conversation with someone earlier today who was interested in a sorority. They didn't express which one. And I was telling them that at the end of the day, I value all sororities, right? All Greek letter organizations. I don't put one down. Of course, we have our banters just like we do in sports. You know, I'm a Saints fan, so anytime I see somebody who loves the Falcons, I'm like, whatever. But at the end of the day, when you look at, you know, the history of all of these organizations being the pillar of the Black community and what they stand for, when you take away the letters, what I look at is sisterhood. Black women who are working towards uplifting each other and uplifting the community and uplifting the Black family, right? So I never put any organization down. So by you saying Sigma Gamma Rho, it's not offensive to me. Like, why would you say I'm a Sigma Gamma Rho? Just the fact that I have the pleasure of being a part of the Greek family is an honor and a pleasure for me, and I appreciate it. My walk just happened to be with Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, right? But I'm curious as to why you would say Sigma Gamma Rho. And I do have a Delta shirt.
Yeah. Don't look at the shirt. If I see the whole shirt, I would have got that. But yeah, no, I just personality, because people go off the stereotype. So I was, you got the stereotypical of so what a member of certain sorority or fraternity acts like. Like maybe she said don't look at the shirt, maybe it's not obvious. So I was like, let me go Sigma, you know what I'm saying? So I was like, yeah, maybe. Yeah.
You're the first. I honestly, I've always, most of my life, I've been deemed as a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. Okay. So I have been deemed that, and for stereotypical reasons, because I'm light skinned. Yes. And in New Orleans, my godmother was a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. Okay. Many of my close friends are. So for a very long time, I was deemed as a member of that particular sorority. When I decided to become a member of Delta Sigma Theta, it shocked some people, but also a lot of people said I'm a hybrid. Because I'm very politically aware and involved as much as I can be, and I have a very strong personality, is why some people would assume, I would be a Delta. I've had in the past sprinkles of people to say Zeta Phi Beta. Some of my closest friends are members of Phi Beta Sigma. My daughter's father is a member of Phi Beta Sigma. So I've had sprinkles. I have sprinkles of that, but most time I have been called a hybrid. I could go either way with either Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated or Delta Sigma Theta Sorority. So.
Okay.
You mark yourself as the first.
Yeah. Okay. That's what we try to do here on GRC. That's the move. So,
yes.
So in representing all respect, much respect to all the Black Greek letter organizations, definitely have a huge plethora of friends who are part of all those different organizations. I know Kaida, because I know Kaida has those questions.
No, yo.
No, here's what I'm going at, right? With all this climate going on, right? And we talked about just social organizations. how does your particular organization, or how you fit in your organization, fit like kind of what's going on with discrimination, not only with women, but also Black folks, and just the current climate? Like, has there been any talks of certain events, or like events in the past that you all have done, or you know that organizations have done?
Yeah.
These things.
I mean, certainly. Let me put this out there. I don't represent the Delta Sigma Theta sorority organization in the statements that I make, right? I represent myself. But what I will say is that I have appreciated and valued the response that my sorority has put in place. We have had conversations, and there have been conversations both private and public around Black Lives Matter, around protecting our youth, about educating our youth of how to act appropriately. What I have also, the history of Delta Sigma Theta is that we was a politically charged organization. We was the first sorority to be a part of the women's suffrage movement, right? So we are founded out of being politically involved and aware, and making our voices, heard at the top. You just look at many of the political figures that we have. Dorothy Height is one of them. What's important is understanding, and again, this is my personal statement. I can value and appreciate many of my sorority members out there protesting on the front lines, as well as I can appreciate many of them writing letters to the Congress people, and many of them making statements in support of a lot of police reform. And so when you look at our response as a sorority as a whole, we are on every single level. I've also seen many members get out there and try to train some of these young people in how to protest and articulate themselves in a way that they can be heard. And so I think education is at the forefront for what we do as a sorority, and being active at the table is what we do at the forefront. So not just representing ourselves as women or Black women, but representing ourselves as a community as a whole at the table, and getting people to see different perspectives and think about how we come up with solutions, and how that's not only just going to impact the community that we're serving, but how is that going to trickle into other communities that surrounds us. And so I think overall, individually, we have done an amazing job. And I think as a collective whole, our sorority response has been, we need change, and we're going to work together as a change. We're a powerhouse. Look, I'm getting goosebumps when I think about it. Delta is the largest sorority out of all the Penn Helen organizations. So you get us in our red hats on that Capitol Hill, you're gonna see some change, because we're very influential. We have some who are very outspoken, as well as we have some who are quiet storms, like hurricanes. You don't see it coming. But you'll be amazed at the members that we have in their reach and their touch. So what I will say is that I think, and again, this is my personal statement, I think in the months to come, right before election, you're going to really see what Delta is really about in terms of getting people to the polls, and getting those votes counted, and watching what happens in this next election.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for sharing that, because I want to ask that, because we talked about in a previous podcast about how with this political climate that's happening, a lot of people just feel like they need to really act in a certain way, and to be able to say that they were part of the solution, not the problem. But the turmoil and some of the apprehension is they're not part of any organizations. So it's like, what organization are you part of to really make your energy impactful? And I'm glad you stated that reference of your organization, because people need to know about these, because they do exist, and they do valid work in the community and political climate. So
no, and I will say this too, Kyle. I don't necessarily and it's funny, the conversation I had earlier today with someone when they were asking me, I'm a late Greek person, right? I'm like been in the Greek life now for two and a half years, so I'm a baby Delta, right? And one of the comments that I had made to her early on in the conversation was, I think I was around in my early 30s, and I asked someone, what would be the point of me joining a sorority? Like, I'm actively involved, and I don't need friends, and kind of some of the statements that people go through the process of trying to figure out. Like, I don't need to network. And what I told her was, you don't have to be in a sorority to do the community work. Like, you don't have to be a part of an organization to do community work. That if you look way back in the day, the members of the civil rights movement weren't a part of Greek-led organization. Now, of course, there were some. You know, Martin Luther King was Alpha, and I can't remember the other one. He's a Kappa.
Yeah, Ralph.
Yeah, that's who it was. And then Huey Newton was a Sigma, right?
Yes, he sure was. Wow, yeah, he sure was.
Yeah. So yeah, there were some who were part of it, but that was not at the forefront. Like, they didn't get on the podium and was like, "Now I'm a member of Phi Beta Sigma, and this is what my brothers and I are gonna do."
Right.
You know,
Jackson Omega.
Right. Coretta didn't say, "I'm a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, so ladies, let's get out here and vote." that wasn't how they prelude the conversation. So because they didn't go forward with the conversation starting off like that, and they were able to galvanize many people from different walks of life, some educated, some not, that's just a testament to the fact that you don't have to be in a sorority or a fraternity to make change. What you do need to do is be organized and understand what it is that you're trying to accomplish. Now, everybody can't accomplish everything. And so I'm from the school of, yes, I think you needed to have the Martin Luther Kings of the world. Yes, I do think you need to have Malcolm X. And yes, I do think you need to have Huey Newton in order to make effective change, because each of those entities did something different, right? And they focused their attention on something different. All wanted equality, but how they went about it was very different. And sometimes you have to have different groups of people attacking the issue from different angles in order to make change occur. So would I tell people you have to be a part of something? No, I don't. Does it help? In some instances, it does, because in numbers bring power. In numbers, it brings change. In numbers, it brings awareness. But I could, if I was not a member of Delta Sigma Theta, I could get 25 of my friends together and organize us, and we could walk down Peachtree City, and we're going to make effective change without even having a name. It would just be, there was a group of Black people walking down Peachtree City, and they were protesting. You know what I mean? And that's what they would know us as the group of Black people walking down Peachtree City, and we want change. And sometimes that's all it takes. And so that's what I told the young lady, like, you know, being in these organizations is great because you get access to different type of intellect and different types of strategies. And then you also can take your thoughts and your ideas and apply it to this table and create a bigger puzzle. But at the same time, if that's not your walk, that's not your walk. Everybody can't be in an organization. Everybody don't want to be a part of something. They just want to be involved in the change. They want to be involved in the conversation. So that doesn't mean that you have to join 100 Black men to make that change, to have your voice heard. You can go and get a microphone and go stand on the same corner as the rest of us, and make your speech, and you still will be heard just the same as if you was a member of Phi Beta Sigma.
Okay. Indeed.
Heavy hitter, brother.
Yeah, man.
I mean, that concludes our GRC discussion for today. Thank you. We hope you learned a lot. I know I did.
Hey.
You have any more questions? You got another question? Go
ahead. Yeah, I got questions for sure for days.
Have them ready.
I see.
Now the way we really function, I usually hit you with a side question. You know, I you know, but you mentioned. So I'm so impressed with you, Shelly, and I'm honored and privileged to have known you, to have met you, and to have known you all this time. I really am, and I ask that you forgive me for the lack of communication on my part. But now we're going, just for your viewers who are watching, we're gonna have a podcast. We're gonna have Shelly on here talk about whole, but so just be ready. So when we met, one of the programs that you shared that was very impressive that I didn't know about was ADVID, right? AVID.
Oh yes.
Right, and it's a program that helps students prepare for college and careers.
Yes.
My question to you, as you're speaking in reference to, in light of the protests that are happening today, walking down the block, gathering people, you know, speaking to the injustices that are taking place in the world, having that impact as far as a group of people, but also young people who have been known to have an impact in making a change or having an influence in the civil rights movement. My question to you is what led you or what drew you to AVID? How did you know about it? What drew you to it? What was that process about?
Hold on.
I got it. I got
No,
it.
you didn't. You did. We live, so I'm trying to figure out how I can be a mother at the same time. Okay, I'm sorry. That you didn't get me. It was I heard a noise and it didn't sound good, so I was trying to figure out how do I be a mother live and keep it professional. No, so it's funny about the AVID program. Actually, it was a girlfriend of mine who was working at AVID, and they were looking for an assistant, to be honest with you. And I had already worked in nonprofit. I worked in education, and they were doing some work on the regional level. And so she asked me if I wanted to join. And from joining, I learned a lot about what AVID did, because I really didn't know much about it other than the fact that it was a education operation. And then when I got there, I was like, oh wow, they do a lot that can be replicated. And then they also do it a lot in the South. Since then, I think they're national now. It's been some years. The other part where you caught me is that I was like, AVID, that was like 2000, like I'm old, man. So you kind of got me, and then you didn't get me, because I was like, girl trying to be a mother on this live line. They about to be like, now she Clark for real.
So,
be like, girl, you don't turn that TV on. No, okay.
So with that said, I did some research on you. I know my personal relationship with you.
Yeah.
And I told Kyle how impressed I am with you. You already know that already. But apparently, I'm not the only one that you've had this impact on. Apparently, you helped turn around one of the worst performing schools, if that's correct, in the Citizen Schools New York portfolio, by building relationships with administration and teachers and creating a positive environment for your staff. How did that come about? Where did that come from? What motivated you to do that? Did you ever want to quit? I mean, how were you able to turn around that school, I guess is
Yeah. Wow, you going all the way back. I wasn't ready for this one. Okay, so Citizen Schools, New York. It was in a gang, kind of like a gang zone, this type of student that they bring in. So the school is located in a very rich area, but they bus in students from these gang infested communities. Did I ever want to quit? Oh God, some people might see this. No, actually I did not. What I will say is that I am a Southern girl to my heart. And so going into the North, if you will, so we're gonna put this all in context, right? From New York. So I'm Southern. How y'all doing, people? Me too. And I'm smiling at everybody and waving because it's a beautiful day. Right. And everybody's like grilling me, like, what's up with you? What's wrong with her? So I can remember walking in. Okay, let me go back. So Citizen School actually had hired me for a position in North Carolina. But by the time they got to me, I had already accepted a position in Boston. So maybe like a year later, because of my experience in Boston, I decided to come back home. They called me and said, we have this, it's a temporary assignment. It's in New York. We need somebody to basically come in and clear house. So I can't remember who exactly it was, but it was somebody who I formerly worked with said that, and this is about to be really embarrassing, she's really good at clearing house. Like she'll go in and fire people and get stuff together. So that's kind of the reputation that I had, which is not necessarily the best reputation. Anyway, so to not get into trouble, but essentially the organization was looking at trying to save the grants. And one piece that they were looking at was kind of doing a restart by changing out the staff and redeveloping the agreement between the school and the organization. So that's the best way I can say that. anyway, so my role was only supposed to be 6 months, just enough to keep the program moving forward. What I will say about that was that when I went in, my first moment was like, what's that movie? Lean on Me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Joe Clark.
And Joe Clark. I will always remember it was kind of like an in-cage school, and there were different levels, and the vice principal was walking us around, and all of a sudden the police just came running out of nowhere, and students was running out. I was like, what is this going on? A fight had broken out. And I was like, ooh, and I had never been in this, look, I get close. I had never been in this type of public school environment. So I was like, what? And the vice principal was yelling, get them, get in the classroom, lock the doors, shut down. And I was locked down. I was like, what is this? And they kind of got things calmed out. They had arrested some people because the middle school was attached to a high school, which is a whole nother situation, right? In that same meeting, there was a kid that was there who was concerned because there was some gang members that was walking around the school waiting for this individual to come out so they could dump them. So they had to call in a special task force, to kind of clear out the space. Now, what was going to happen to that student wasn't really sure, but this was kind of a part of like my introduction. So I was supposed to be interviewing at this time, but this is the introduction to my interview. So the lady comes in and she's like, with her little walkie-talkie, she sits it down. She was like, so you from Georgia? You think you can handle this? And I was like, no. Literally, I was like, no. I said, but I was like, I'm willing to try. And so she gave me the rundown of the school and, the type of environments that these kids are coming out of. Now, again, I'm from the South. I'm used to kids, being picked up by somebody and putting them in a car. In New York, I have 5th graders getting on the train and making their way home, and because it gets dark at a certain time, walking blocks, and they're going through these different gang infested things. And the concern for the teachers was, are they going to make it to school the next day? And I just remember her saying, don't ever leave the kids in the classroom by themselves, no matter what you do. So there's like tons of these stories, right? But at the end of the day, I was up for the challenge because my mentor at the time had told me, what's going to excel you and make you different is having the experience and working in a different region. That's gonna make you really understand what best practices you want to bring back to the South and back into the schools that you're working in. You want to have a broad view of life. You don't want to just have a Southern view of life. And that's what makes great leaders great, is that they function. If you look at CEOs, they function in so many different areas and so many different opportunities that they can talk exquisitely about culture. I'm Black, but I'm a Black Southern, as opposed to you might be Black that's a Northern from New York, as opposed to somebody that's Black that's in California. Our experiences in some ways are similar, in my opinion, but at the same time, the culture and what we're exposed to is different. I could just remember a 5th grader, I'm about to get explicit, so you might end up editing. She was upset because her boyfriend broke up with her because she would not let him perform. And she was a 5th grader. And I was like, what? And I was shocked because I was like, you're a 5th grader. Now, mind you, I had worked with 5th graders before, but this was the conversation. And it was an 8th grader who should have been a 9th grader. But he was in 8th grade. She was like, but I love him, Miss Rochelle. And I was like, well, how do you know you love him? And she was like, because, he's all that. And I was like, well, make him all that. She was like, he has a bike. I was like, he has a bike? And she was like, yeah. Because in New York, apparently, for her, having a bike is a mode of transportation. And I was like, oh, okay. And I was like, well, is he going to be a basketball player? And she was like, well, no, he can't play sports. I said, well, is he good at school? She was like, well, no, he failed 2 times. So I was like, but you love him? Girl, bye. But it grew me up, right? It started to grow me up and get out of my comfort zone. I can remember my 8th graders, the teacher left the 8th graders in the classroom. And I could always remember this. This is my funny story, and I'm going to cut it off. I saw the teacher, and I was like, are you not in the classroom? And she was like, no. And you can hear all this noise. I started running down the hallway, like, no, you cannot leave them in the classroom by themselves. And I get there, and the kids, they jumping all over, they throwing stuff. 2 boys are getting ready to go fighting. And out of nowhere, the adrenaline got to me, and I started yelling. I was like, sit down, sit in your seat. What is wrong with you? Like, I'm yelling. And so they looking because, you know, I'm the study. Hey, everybody, boo, love you. And I'm like, sit in a seat, and I don't care. And I think it was like 3 of them that your brother was engaged, and they was like looking at me, and I was like, you can get it if you want to. Get me after 5 o'clock. I'm gonna be outside, and we can handle this, okay? But for right now, while you on my turf, you're gonna do what I say do. Sit down. And so, you know, I'm getting it in order or whatever. So finally, after about an hour, me yelling and, you know, one bracing up on me, and I was like, I'm not gonna call nobody. We're gonna do this. We're gonna do this. We're gonna do this. All right. So sit down. You don't want none of this today. So I went through all of that, and then the teacher came back in there, and I was like, now you handle this class. And I walk outside, and one of my coworkers, he was there. He was like, you okay? I said, please walk me to my car because I'm scared. In that moment, in that time, they didn't know that, and he died laughing. And my heart was like, oh God, I can't believe I yelled at them, and I can't be outside, and I can't fight. What do I do?
Yo, those moments, man. Oh goodness.
Right. But I was to your point, to your question earlier. I mean, I wanted that experience so bad because my mentor said, you know, it's going to grow me up, and it's going to propel me in ways that I wouldn't even imagine. So it wasn't just the students that changed my life. It was my staff, because culturally, I was not aware, and I wasn't well educated. And I felt nobody but myself, but I remember just only seeing black and white. And I was having conversation with my staff members, and one person who I thought was black, he was like, I'm Jewish. And one person who I was like, well, I know you black, he was like, I'm African. And then another girl was like, I'm Haitian. I was like, oh, and they were like, you so not aware. Because I grew up in New Orleans. I grew up in the South, and we have black, you either black or you white or you mixed. And that's it. And to sit and be able to have, you know, these honest conversations with these individuals who was bringing me in and educating me on how I should be more culturally aware and culturally sensitive, and take the time to understand different people's plights and why, you know, certain cultures move the way that they do, and why there's some people who resist their culture and, you know, abandon it, and why identity was so important. I might have gotten that if I stayed, but I valued that education, because even my students would challenge me and make me think about life in a different way. Because they were like, Miss Rochelle, you so Southern. And I would ask them, like, you know, tell me about your life and tell me what it is that you go through. And to hear their experience as 5th and 6th and 7th graders. And some of them was like, you know, once I graduate out of 8th grade, I'm gonna go work for the family business. I was like, you're not going to high school? No, that's not my trajectory. You know, that's not what they're looking for. Some of them go to school just to be safe, just to eat, you know, and their parents tell them, go to school so you can get a meal. It's not about you learning how to read or write. It's about you, you know, having a safe place during the day so that the parents could go to work. And then when they get off, you know, everybody could be in the house. Mm-hmm. So for me to hear these kids in New York were going through these different scenarios, I couldn't even imagine. Like in the South, the kids that I dealt with, they dealt with like food insecurities at a different type of level. Mm-hmm. These kids was dealing with, I just remember one boy, and he never came back. His brother had gotten into some type of gang activity or whatever, and he got involved. He was a 7th grader, and he would hang out at the school so often. And one day I was like, why are you still here? Because you bad. Like, he was bad. And he was, and I was like, I'm kicking you out the program. He was like, please don't, because if you do, they're gonna get me. And I was like, what? And I remember having to call the police that night. And I remember the police said, it's not much we can do until something happens. You know, we can patrol it, but chances are they might get him. And that was a hard conversation for me. And he didn't show back up after that. And the teacher called, and she went by. And as the director, that was hard, because I had to tell the teacher, if I find out you go, I'm gonna have to let you go. Because that was my duty. Now I can say now, because I no longer work there, I knew that she was gonna go, but as my duty, I had to say, if you go, I'm gonna have to fire you because you're putting yourself in harm's way. But she was just like, they sent him off somewhere because they were looking for him to kill him. And so that did I ever think about quitting? Oh, most definitely, because that wasn't my life. But when I started to get to know these kids' stories and they started to warm up to me and they started to hear me and knew that I cared, it made me want to stay.
Shelly, thank you so much. I think, right, and I'm done with the questions, guys. You can come back with the questions.
He wanted to give me the hard one. Now he's like, Carol, you got it. You got it.
Some more now. But I'm giving now some chances. I want to say, again, you know how much I appreciate you, and I thank you so much, because I think what you just shared with us was an example of why there's such a disconnect between teachers and students, particularly in the inner cities. The fact that you were able to and were willing to listen to them, to care for them, and they heard it in your voice and they felt it from you, is the impact, which is why I believe what this person said and what I read, how you were able to effectively turn that school around. And my hat comes off to you. I applaud you. I think
definitely.
Thank you. Awesome.
And by the way, I did not lose any of my staff members. I did not let anybody go. But we did it. We did. And I always tell people, like, that was the intent, but we turned it around. And I was really proud of what came out of that. And it was very hard for me to leave. They cried when I made the announcement that I was leaving, but it was really hard. And there are moments in my life where I've regretted not staying longer. I can be very honest and forthright about that, because I was just in a different space where it was about me at the time and what I wanted for my career. But I think had I stayed in New York another year, I probably would be in a different place. We don't know where, but I think growth-wise, it was probably one of the best decisions that I had made for my life.
Yeah, those decisions are tough. Like I said, we as educators, because our hearts are in it, and we put energy and time and emotions and care into our students and into their lives. So it's, people think like, oh, you teach the lesson and you go home. No, we take that with us when we go home.
With us, yeah.
You don't realize
that's
that.
True.
Like,
you're right. It being a teacher, it doesn't turn off.
No.
And it's the same for me as a mentor. I have a couple of mentees, and I worry. It's weird. I worry about them. When I was working at Year Up, I had 3 mentees. One, he was in the streets. Another one, she was, here and there, and another one, she was going through coming out as a member of the LGBT community, right? And I would worry about them. Now, these grown people, but I would take them with me. And I remember when I got pregnant, I was so upset because I was like, as your mentor, I should not be pregnant out of wedlock. This is horrible. And I was so embarrassed. And I remember one of my mentees saying, "I'm so happy for you." And I was like, "Why? This is not the model that I want to present to you, right?" And she said, "Because now you can have somebody else to worry about. It's not us." But I have mentees that, although I don't always keep as close in contact, with them as I would like, just because life happens, I worry about them. I carry them on my heart. Because as a teacher, you learn people's stories and you're able to see their growth, right? And so, like, 2 of my mentees right now, I got them at Clark when they were freshmen, and they're juniors now, and I see their growth, but I also see some of the mistakes that I made. And so even though I try to say, "Hey, this is what's going to happen," and they don't listen, and then I know what's going to happen, it weighs on me, right? So as a teacher, you can't, it's if you care about, let me say it, if you care about your job, it's hard to turn it off. It's funny because one of my dear friends is a principal, and the first thing that came to mind when we went into shelter in place was, what's going to happen to those kids who have parents who abuse them? And for 8 hours out the day, they can get a break. What happens to those kids whose parents just neglect them? For 8 hours out of the day, they have a teacher or somebody in that school that cares about them, that is giving them a hug, that's giving them a treat, that is allowing for them to just breathe. And I'm not a teacher, but immediately that was my thought. And I called him and I said, what are y'all doing about those students? And he sighed and he said, Ro, we're doing the best that we can. We're calling every day. We try to talk to the kids to make sure that they're okay. We're trying to send them meals, but it is tough. And he said the best thing that we can do is just pray that when we open back up, that those kids will return and they not perish.
Yeah.
And that's not to bring the conversation down, but
no, not at all. No, you. That's the next. I was going to go into that. You just went right into it. So I was
yeah. That I hope that in the second half, after I kind of get through my fundraising goals and achievement, that eventually I'll go and I'll teach because I don't enjoy waking up in the morning. So if I can find a school that'll let me arrive at 10 o'clock. But yeah, I would love, right? All teachers would love it, like 10 o'clock.
Yeah, we would all love that. Hey, anybody, right. Educated administration, hey, move. Yes.
Right. But look, I'll be that virtual teacher, like, all right, look, we're gonna do our nap time right now, and then we're gonna do some meditation, and then we're gonna do a breathing exercise for 45 minutes, and then we're gonna get into our lesson.
Speak it into existence. Speak it.
Right. They're going to be like, Miss Rochelle always got us meditating. And first we got to meditate, then she got us breathing for 2 hours. You like this. Oh, yeah. Kyle, I see you. I see you, Kyle. But I hope, in the second half that I'll have the opportunity to go back into the classroom and teach, because I so enjoy watching the growth. It's a little different as a parent because I get a little frustrated, like, look, you need to get this in 2.2 seconds. So my patience is a little different. Okay. But outside of that, we'll see what happens. But such is life.
Yes, c'est la vie, So I wanted to go in, Shelly, into like what you were saying with the abuse and trauma, because I think especially with now, Kai, they have talked about it. We've had people here, guest doctors and psychotherapists on here as well. So in reference of like you being a psychology major, right, and then going into social work and going into public administration, like how does that now inform like your education as far as dealing with students or clients or just people in the community? Because I think now is the time where people are starting to become more comfortable with like trauma, and I know in your experience you dealt with like trauma curriculum, and I'm real interested in that, like something that I have not really heard a lot about. And please inform us about that, because that sounds like really intriguing and really like transformative.
Yeah. Now you just made me forget what it is. Okay, so now y'all catching. Okay, the healing circles. That's
the healing circle.
Okay, so healing circle. So one thing, I'm not. So I was working with an anti-bullying organization where we were teaching it, and it's called. I can't even think of that curriculum. I'll get to it. But anyway, basically, we would go in and have conversations with students about trauma and how they react to trauma. Like what are those triggers? And so if a student is engaged in an argument, being able to be mindful of your body reaction to the conversation, and how do you de-escalate the situation by calming yourself down, mindfulness. So that was one curriculum that I was implementing at a school, and it was interesting. They needed to do some tweaks because we have kids who are coming out of different type of environments than the developers were coming from. So some of the curriculum did not necessarily match, because I can remember we were talking about what happens if somebody this is the question. What happens if somebody approach you and make a comment about your mother? What would you do in that situation? Now these kids, are like, I'm popping off. Like, what you doing about my mom. But the response was, I'm going to breathe. And then I'm going to count. And then I'm going to say, please don't talk about my mother. And walk. Okay.
Yeah.
So this is a curriculum that they're asking.
1, 2, and that's gonna be first is gonna be 1 to punch, and then the 2 is gonna be the thud on the ground. That's gonna be
1, 2, right? I got like all the way. And so I remember I was they were middle school kids. And I remember I was asking this question and I was telling, and one of the girls like, this is stupid. Like, who got time to count? I'm about to count it out. Like, and I was like, come on, we can get through this. Like, what are some other ways that we can address this situation using our fists? And one girl was like, hey, you're going to have to buzz this out. She was like, I'm going to be like, bitch, talk about my mother one more time. No, we can't do that. So
that's the one.
In the mindfulness, I had to do a couple of adjustments because I was like, these kids are not getting it. And they're talking about mindfulness. I'm about to mind somebody's ass to that floor. Like, this is what these kids are doing. And I'm like looking at this curriculum, like, now repeat this. Now say, after a while, that curriculum kind of like went out the window. Like, okay, we're gonna have to adjust it. It was like, instead of us beating someone's ass, maybe we can kind of step back for a second and say, can you give me 5 feet in 5 seconds? And during that 5 seconds, let's think about what can our reaction be. And so when I would be like 5 feet, 5 seconds, they started getting in. I was like, okay, Miss Rochelle, I'll try it. And then we would have these sessions where they would come back in the next day, and I'm like, so how did yesterday go? Yeah, I tried that shit. It didn't work, but at least I tried it, Miss Rochelle. And so I was like, at least you tried it. We'll try it again. And so I remember one girl said, yeah, they know not to mess with me no more. 5 seconds, punch your ass. So a lot of people. But what I can say is at the end of it, when I didn't think that they were getting it, and I was like, well, this is our last session. I was like, oh no, and they started regurgitating what they learned, and some of them was like they were applying it at home. So when you just think that they're not learning it, they did. So that was one. And then we had the healing circle curriculum that I was working with, and that was very deep because it was around people who experience loss by loved ones. And so there was a circle that I co-hosted with a friend of mine, and it was parents who had lost children due to violence, gun violence. And so you could imagine how heavy it was for them to go around and talk about what that experience was like losing a child. And some of them, it had been 5 years, some of it had been 2 years. One person, he was there, he had just lost his son 2 months prior to the circle. One mom had lost 3 of her kids within 3 years due to street activity. And so the healing circle was really an opportunity for people to listen and to hear. Now, the objective of the healing circle was to try to bring communities together. And you'll learn about healing circles if you Google it. It's taking place. It's like restorative justice. If you guys know about that, where you bring the victim and the victimizer together and they talk about like what happened and how to make them feel. Well, the healing circles is an extension somewhat of that. And you'll see that within a lot of the gang communities. I have tried to incorporate it with some of my friends and in my work because the model works, right? So you bring everybody together and you talk about, different subject matters, but it opens people up to listen and to say, I was a victim of X, Y, and Z. And so when people do X, Y, and Z, it makes me feel like X, Y, and Z. I think one of the most powerful to relate to this question was when we had a circle of diverse individuals. And the Black woman in there was like, I don't like white people. I can't stand white people. They make me uncomfortable. They're racist. And there was 3 other white people that was in the circle. And they listened to what she had to say, because in the healing circle, you can't talk and you can't break the healing circle unless you have a stick. And she said, she said my ancestors and some of the things that she experienced, but she started to let it out. And she said it felt good because she had a person to look at. And then we allowed each person to go around and make a statement. And by the time it got to one of the white people, he was like, can't apologize for what other white people do because I don't represent all white people. But you gave me a different perspective about how I engage people of color in moving forward. and being aware of my privilege as a white person, right? So we created this dialogue. So he cried and she cried. And it wasn't, for me, this is my humble opinion, it wasn't white guilt. It was, I never took the time to stop and ask the question. And he said, I never felt comfortable to ask the question because it always seemed as if when I'm in circles of Black and African American people, they're so angry. And sometimes it's like, why don't you know this? How come you don't know this? You should know this. And the reality of the situation is that it allowed for conversation to occur. And I remember the other white person that was in the circle said, you know, when I say racism happened on both sides, I mean by I want to know and I want to understand. I will never be able to experience it, but I experience it in a different way because when something happens, Black people automatically look at me and say, you white people, you do this, you do that, as reverse to me saying, you Black people do X, Y, and Z. And she was like, sometimes I just want to be able to ask a question without people, you know, jumping down my throat and saying, you should just know this. Oh, there it is, that white privilege again. She said, because I don't know. And the realities of my life did not allow for me to get to know, right? So early on when we were talking about, you know, popular opinion, I tell people a lot of times, one of my closest friends, she has friends who are part of the KKK. And people always ask me, how am I friends with her? And I say, I'm friends with her because we have honest conversation. I don't feel threatened. I feel like when she tells me this is, you know, her opinion about certain things, based off of her, you know, interactions with them, I can tell her, well, this is how it's perceived, you know, and we have honest conversation to change the narrative. And until we get to a place where we can begin to change the narrative and not feel so judgy towards people, it's going to be hard to make a change. Just in my scenario, you know, me talking about being a Southern girl going to New York and only seeing Black and white, how offensive is it of me to label a Jewish person Black based off of what I think her features look like, right? How offensive is it of me to label somebody who is Haitian and say, you're just a Black American, disregarding who they are in their culture. And but because they allow for me to come in and say, I don't know, and I'm ignorant to it, please educate me. It changed my trajectory of how I engage people and not automatically make the assumption because your skin has some hue to it that you're Black. Because, you know, I've met many people who are like, my daddy's Black, but I look like I'm white. And I'm like, oh, wow, you're Black? The ignorance of me now, you know, because I was able to be educated, I don't automatically make the assumption. I might ask, like, you know, you look like you have some different ethnic, you know, ethnic hues in your facial features. Do you mind if I ask what you are? Yeah. And so I say that. Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Shelly. Complete
No,
your
I was gonna say. So those are the things that I've been through in terms of, like, you know, applying my social work license to trauma and how I've worked in trauma. Just to really be honest with you, how what I'm working on is, for me, where my passion is lying really right now is co-parents. I really want to get into that space of coaching people who are either divorcees or people who have kids out of wedlock, who are with people who necessarily didn't want to be with, and how do we transform those relationships? I see many times, and from my experience, and it goes on both sides. Sometimes Black men, they get hit harder and they really want to be fathers. And many times, you know, we have Black mothers who are just upset because the relationship didn't work out, or the Black man is not acting accordingly, and their friends are like, put that man on child support. That's not necessarily always the answer. And I also hear Black men will be like, she angry and she mad and she want to be with me. And that's not always the case. And so what I want to do is, in the coming months, is bring that conversation back to the table, right? And because we have a whole host of kids who are coming out of co-parenting households or, you know, separate households. This is new generation. And so if we don't get to a place where we can start mending, you know, relationships, not getting people to be together, but mending relationships, but how do we co-parent effectively to raise a healthy child that's not coming out of a situation where, you know, either the boy grows up and he gets a child out of wedlock, or the girl grows up and she has, you know, a bunch of baby daddies, if you will. How do we get healthy people to begin to have, you know, healthy relationships and work together? as opposed to what we currently see a lot of times in the climate is that the man is upset he's on child support and he don't get to see the child, and the mom's upset don't want the child around the daddy as a form of punishment.
And Shirley, let me interject real quick, Kaide.
No, hold on, Cal. This is powerful right there. But I want to.
It is like what you just said.
We at the top of the hour. So we need your permission if you would like to continue the conversation.
You have me for another 10 minutes.
I told you, Cal.
No, I just want to comment, Shelly, in reference of I was talking to Kaide the other day, and I was referencing one of the elders heard one of the elders say one time is that it said it takes a village, the constant African proverb, it takes a village to raise a child, but what about the people, the elders and the adults who raise that child? It takes a community to raise a family. So it's like, I'm glad you're doing that type of work, because it's like we are focused on the children, but if the parents aren't healthy, how are the children healthy? So,
exactly.
Yeah,
that's the point. It's weird. I would say, like, early on in my pregnancy, my daughter's father was going through some financial hardships, right? And there were moments in time where I really supported her solely. And I felt as if he did not appreciate or value the fact I'm working 2 jobs and taking care of her, because I wanted him to focus on whatever career he was going to have, right? So my thought was, I'm going to go into this and work with you, figure out what it is that you want to do, because my career is where it's going to be. But I want you to be whole, because as she gets older, she's going to need you, not just financially, but she's going to need you emotionally and psychologically. So this time while she's young, yes, it's important, but I want you to focus on you. So that was the way I was going into it, right? But there were moments in time where he was angry and mad, and I couldn't even understand it. And I remember one time he was like, "You an angry baby mama," and I was like, "Dude, I don't even need you." So this is our conversation. I was like, "I don't even need you. Like, do you not see I got this? Like, I got my own place, my own car, career. Like, she ain't hurting for nothing." And she wasn't, and he was not on child support. And I remember some of my friends was like, "You better go put him on child support and force him to do it." And I was like, "But that's not what I need." I remember processing, like, I need him to be present and watch her and build a relationship. And then the other part was his friends was like, "She's too tough on you and she's hard." And so I remember we was trying to go, and this is what I can value about him. I remember I was like, "We need to go to counseling." And we were in counseling, and the man was like berating him and saying, "You're going to step up and be a man and you're going to marry her." And in my mind, I was like, "I'm trying to get married to this man. I just want him to take care of his child. Like, I want him to be co-parent." And I remember we went to another one, and the woman was like, "Sister, we're going to have to do this without him because he ain't going to be." And it was like nobody understood. We were trying to figure out a way to effectively communicate with each other as not being in a relationship, not trying to get married, not trying to be in love. People were too busy trying to fix our relationship and not fix our communication as parents. Two totally separate things, right? You hear all the time when people get married, there's the marriage that you're supposed to still be dating your spouse. And then there's the parent side where you guys learn how to, compromise and bring your values and beliefs and mix them up and make it the whole child. We were doing that without the covenant, and people could not understand that. And for the longest time, it got to the point where I said, I have a daughter, and I was like, what kind of daughter am I raising? Am I raising a daughter to think that it's okay to take care of a man? Because that's not what I want to do. And then I said, am I raising the daughter to think that it's okay to get any kind of man? Because that's not what I want her to do. So for me, where my frustration in our situation came in is that, what am I doing that is going to produce what type of person, what type of woman? Because at the end of the day, because she's a girl, it's going to fall on me the type of woman that she eventually becomes, right? So her daddy is going to teach her the type of man she needs to bring into her life, and I'm going to teach her the type of woman she needs to be throughout her life. Make sense?
Yes, it does.
And so that is where I started to look at what the dynamics of our relationship. And then I started to pay attention to the advice that people were giving me. And we can go on and on. But I remember after I had her, I had other friends that have kids, and their first response that their friends told them, "Go put them on child support." And I said, "Okay, so you get the man on child support." Now, does that mean he's going to come around and see his child more? What is your goal? Is your goal to be actively involved in your child's life or actively involved in your life? Is it to control him? What is your goal for this child support thing? Because I could put her dad on child support all day long, but does that mean he's gonna be here on Saturday morning? Because I'm still gonna have to take that money and provide a babysitter, or when I have to go to work, I'm still gonna have to get it. I need for him to be present because I need him to show her the type of man she needs to bring into her life, whether good or bad. I need for him to be present. And that's the conversation that tends to be missed right now when we talk about these co-parenting relationships. We don't have to mend it to people to be together. We have to mend it so that people can parent together. You might not agree with everything that I do, but we need to come to some sort of agreement so we can raise a healthy child. And hopefully that healthy child will be able to identify another healthy child, and they will be able to get back to the union of a marriage and family. That is the ultimate goal. But if not, at least we did our part to raise something that's healthy. And that's what I'm always battling with when it comes to my friends and even myself as a mother. I want my daughter to be well balanced. Take care of yourself, support your spouse, for them to be successful, but then also make sure that you're independent at the same time.
Told you, Cal. Joe, all right. We got to get Shelly back so we give her a good experience now. She'll come back and drop some more jewels and gems on her. It's at the top of the hour. She got her little one. She got to take Shelly. I love it.
I think she didn't blew up the microwave and all kind of stuff. If y'all see me on Facebook looking like,
hbcu, you got to come back. You got to do it. Thank you so much. I'm good. My handles, Twitter and Instagram is Bogdan Logic. You can reach me there. I have 3 channels on YouTube. Kayode Bentley, where I talk about Christianity. Learning about that now, Cal, too, breaking that programming that was in there. Candidate Advisor, where I talk about career development and relationships. I'm going to have you on there. Be ready for that, Shelly, and hit me with some comments.
You have to be ready. We won't say that I'm a member of any organization because I'm going to be money wrong tonight.
And then Perspective TV, where I do one-to-one interviews, more one-to-one, powerful. You'll see that with Talk with Pops and stuff. So that's how you reach me in my handles, Cal.
Yo, family. I mean, this is a great interview. Family, you can reach me at DIX_KYLE on Instagram. That's DIX_KYLE. You can also reach me on Twitter at KEASY. That's KEASY773. And you can also reach me here on YouTube as well at Mr. Kyle Dixon. And of course, you can always reach us at the Grand Rising Collective podcast page on Facebook. I mean, like, come on, what are you waiting for? I mean, go ahead and click that like, click that subscribe, click that save and send, because we bring it to y'all every single time with guests like this sister here who's on point, So, that's my tags, family. Follow me. And Shelly, we're going to end it out with you and sister. Where can they find you? Where can they follow you?
So all my pages are private.
Where can they contact you? Where can they contact if you have any questions?
Yes, no. You can definitely Instagram. I'm at Atlanta Shelly. Very easy, Atlanta Shelly. And that's where if you need to reach me, you can contact me. And I'm pretty much there. Like, that's where I'm at. So I look forward to I'm looking forward to the comments, definitely. And I appreciate you guys having me on. I had a really great time, even with some of the hiccups and me trying to figure out how I'm gonna be a mama. The highlight of my night was I was saying I'm a member of Sigma Gamma Rho. I'm gonna see what my line sisters are gonna say.
Look, no diss to any organization. Well, come holler at me.
I want to see what they're gonna say. Did he try to steal one of ours? It was really great, and I would definitely love to come back for the relationship portion. I'm looking forward to the conversation. So this was great. It was fun. Definitely needed, as y'all know, my story before. So I needed the laughs. And so this was really great. So much love, success to you, brothers. I appreciate what you guys are doing. This is amazing.
Thank you so much, Shelly. We appreciate you. That about does it for our podcast today. On that note, we're going to say peace.
Yeah. Baby, yeah. You know, say, ready on this. You know, I have patience.